Are you ready to change your life, but don't know how to start? Is your stress and worries keeping you awake at night? Have you been battling grief, anxiety, or depression all alone? Have you lost touch with your own sense of being or spirituality? Soul Free Therapies offers professional and affordable live video streaming counseling and coaching services from the comfort of your own home. Sessions offered in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Go to our website at www.soul-free.com and book your first session today.
Hey, check out our brand new sponsor, Dynamic Solutions 2. That's the number 2. They offer a life-changing, dynamic financial solution. The finest in fast, professional, affordable credit repair. Is your credit in bad shape? Do you need a new car? Ready to buy a new house? You want to rent an apartment? Are you going to apply for a job? Any one of these activities, they're going to ask for a credit report and then check out your credit score. Let Dynamic Solutions 2 erase your negative credit remarks. They have affordable monthly prices. They accept Visa, MasterCard, PayPal options available. You go to www.dynamicsolutions, that's the number 2.com, or call 424-888-2820. 424-888-2820. Now, if you enter promo code ED or you mention Ed Opperman, you get a 10% discount. How's that? You get a free consultation, all negative items removed, get back in positive credit position. Dynamic Solutions 2, life-changing dynamic financial solutions. 424-888-2820. Tell them Ed Opperman sent you. You get a 10% discount.
Hey, you, podcast listener. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. Take the blue pill. You wake up in your bed and go back to listening to mundane podcasts that won't challenge your religious beliefs and your so-called truths about reality, the universe, and consciousness. Take the red pill. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast, hosted by Mark Anthony Peterson, and he will show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Event Horizon takes a walk into the paranormal with a splash of conspiracy. It's the podcast that would be born if David Icke and the X-Files had a baby. Subscribe to the Event Horizon podcast by Mark Anthony Peterson on Spreaker, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Stitcher, or any of your other favorite podcast platforms. Remember, all we are offering is the truth, nothing more.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Welcome back to the Opperman Report. We will be returning with our guest, Billy Hayes, author of Midnight Express, Midnight Return, Escaping from a Midnight Express, and The Midnight Express, Letters from a Turkish Prison. We will be right back with him in 1 second. First, let me tell you about MichiganMushrooms.net. MichiganMushrooms.net. Have you guys heard about these chaga mushrooms? It's a mushroom that grows way up in the northern forests that Native Americans and Russians have been using for hundreds of years. It's not the kind of mushroom that you eat, but you make a tea with it. And it's loaded with polysaccharides and other unique phytochemicals. And it's supposed to be pretty delicious, too. Now, you wouldn't guess you were drinking mushroom tea. The folks at MichiganMushrooms.net have been harvesting chaga for years, and they built a great reputation for having the best quality mushrooms for the best prices. Go to MichiganMushrooms.net. You check it out. You can order mushrooms tonight. You can have them in your cup of tea in a couple of days. Their Facebook page is Michigan Mushrooms LLC. But tonight we have with us Billy Hayes from the movie Midnight Express. The guy lived in a Turkish prison. Now you're saying you made a couple of escape attempts before the successful one.
Right.
Well, give us an idea. Was that true about
one of the things that I realized was I discovered there's an article in Turkish Constitution that says if you're judged to be crazy, literally insane, you can't be kept in jail. But if you're that crazy, they don't let you out on the street. They keep you in this madhouse. It was called Bakırköy. It's the mental hospital for the criminally insane. And I actually got myself transferred there for a couple of weeks. I bribed the prison doctor and got myself transferred to Bakırköy Hospital, Section 13 for the criminally insane, wanting to get a crazy report. And most of my friends from the 60s would have said, no problem for you, until I got there and saw the competition. I mean, I've been in a lot of strange places. Bakırköy Hospital was the bottom of the birdcage. There was really luckily, Turkey has closed that hospital 15 years ago. They closed it and locked it. They made more humane conditions for their mentally disabled. But at that time, it was an old barracks that had been used by the Sultan's Janissary troops back during the Ottoman Empire, and had a big wall around it with rusty barbed wire. And it was just this bin, but they threw all of these broken pieces in there. Kind of reminded me of the old Boris Karloff film Bedlam, where the inmates bricked the doctor up alive in the wall at the end. That's what this place looked like. And I spent 2 weeks there attempting to get a legal crazy report that would help me. It would get me out of the Samajala prison where I'd been, and they would keep me in Bakırköy, which would be a better place to escape from. The problem is in Bakırköy, you're there, you've got no clothes. They take away your clothes, give you these little shorty pajamas. People walking around naked and all dirty and wrapped up in sheets. But if I could stay there, and I had a friend on the outside who had a car and clothes and money and a false passport, I climbed like a squirrel. I could get up over the old pitted stone walls of Bakırköy and gotten out. But I got out. I'm in the middle of Istanbul with nothing. I need someone on the outside to help me. Yeah. I contacted after a couple of weeks in Bakırköy, they brought me back to the main prison where I'd been staying for a couple of years. In fact, when I got back to prison, I said, "Oh, it's so nice to be back here." And all the guys are looking at me like, "What are you talking about? Nice to be back here." They hadn't been to Bakırköy. Everything's perspective. I didn't appreciate the world till I lost it. I didn't appreciate the prison I was in till I lost that and went to the madhouse. The madhouse, well, I can't even describe it. But I knew that I could get back there if I bribed the prison doctor. Everything works on the bakshish bribe system in Turkey. But I need someone on the outside. So I contacted my oldest friend in the world, who he was actually working the fishing boats off Alaska at that time. But he came back to help me escape. And he actually came to Istanbul, and we made some plots and plans, and we had a plan set up. And he went back to Mannheim, Germany, where he'd gotten a really good job in the John Deere tractor factory, making the money we'll need and organizing for the break from the madhouse. But a telegram arrived from my dad saying that my friend Norman was found dead in his hotel room in Mannheim with this big army bayonet through his chest, which pretty much was the lowest point of my life. I mean, not only have I gotten myself in jail and ruined my life, and that I'm causing my parents and all the people who love me daily pain, but now because he was coming to help me escape, my best friend is dead. And at that point, his death was bad enough, but it also took away all my hope. He was the guy I needed to get out. So I was pretty much at the bottom. But sometimes the bottom is a good place to be because it forced me to look and to discover things. And I actually did. I made some discoveries in jail that always sound so trite when I talk about them, but, I discovered my reason for being. My reason for being is to love. I never knew that. I mean, I had to be locked up in a Turkish prison to realize that's what I need to do, whether it's one person on one or spread out as far as it can go. But love is the only truth I know in life. Religion talks about a lot of bullshit. Excuse me, I shouldn't say that word, sorry. But religion talks about a lot of stuff, but at the heart of it is love. Around it grows this whole barnacle of religion, whether it's, and name the religion, they're all the same. At the heart of it is love, which gets forgotten. And I only discovered that in jail. And when I did, it changed my life. And it still changed my life, because that's what I need to do, is spread that. And as far as I can spread it, that's my reason for being. And it was an epiphany for me. Everything changed from that moment on. And it still changed.
What were the circumstances around your friend getting a knife in his chest?
he was dealing with people getting false passports and a car because he was going to drive from Germany down to Turkey for me. But he was also dealing with, underground elements. I needed a false passport, and he was in the process of doing that. But he was also, this guy's problem was women wouldn't leave him alone. Everywhere he went, girls just flocked to him, which was great for us back in high school and college. It's kind of like you put him on a string and send him out, and he'd bring him back. He'd come back with 3 or 4 girls. So everybody loved him. He wrote me a letter while I was in jail. He'd come to Istanbul. We coordinated. He went back to Mannheim, Germany. And he wrote me a letter telling me about the progress he was making with plans. Of course, we're writing in code, and it's easy to smuggle letters in and out jail, actually. But he mentioned how he was messing with the wife of this American Army sergeant on the nearby base, which was typical of a Norman. Again, women just wouldn't leave him alone, and he loved it. And I guess he thought he was a whole lot more worldly than he really was. He was sort of a poet and a dreamer and such. And he just was found dead with this bayonet. It was an army bayonet in his chest. They didn't know who killed him. At first they said it was suicide. And then they realized it's not suicide. The guy's got a big army bayonet to his chest. I'm sure it's because he was messing with this army sergeant's wife. Nothing was ever proven, but for me it didn't matter really much anymore because he was dead. However or why ever it happened, he was dead. My hopes for escaping from jail died with him. And everything sort of turned black for me for a while until I found a way out of it. But that's the reason why I think he was killed.
But you talk about a lot of bribery. Now, how were you getting money? Your dad was sending you money?
Money could be... luckily, we have a lot of time here. Money, if people would come and visit you in jail, if the American consul would come out, you would sit at tables, around a table in a room, and you could talk to people, and then they bring you packages and such, and, all of it would get controlled, meaning searched when you bring it back in. If you didn't have the American consul, you would have visits through the glass, like when my girlfriend came, and, you can't really touch or pass anything because you're looking at each other and speaking through a hole in the glass. But when money would come out, if people would bring me money and give me like $10 bills, let's say, at a table out in the front where we're visiting. And now I got to go back and get back into the jail. And the guards are going to search you and look through all of your stuff. And they're going to say, what have you got? And I say, well, I've got, looking around quietly, I've got 10, I've got 9, I've got 8 $10 bills. He takes 2 of the $10 bills. I take the other 8 in my pocket, and I go into the jail. The guards all want you to have money because everything works on the bribe system. No matter what you do, there's a bribe. It's bakshish. When the guard comes to tell you that you've got a visitor, they come to the door and they open up a little metal thing in the door and they give you a visitor slip that gets you out. But before they give you the slip, you have to give them a pack of cigarettes or a 5 lira note. Everything works like that. So they want you to have money. So it's actually easy to get money in jail. It's as strange as that sounds. You have to know how to do it. Obviously, you've got to, know the ways of jail, but it's pretty easy to do. And then also legally, you can have money deposited in the prison bank up front in the jail, and each week you're allowed to take out X amount of money from the prison bank. But the truth is, people smuggle it in all the time.
Now, everybody I know that's ever been a prison, they always got these long stories about recipes and stuff like that they used to cook, while they were in there. Do you have any of those?
Well, I'm not much of a cook, but invariably the food that they give you is like bread every morning if you get there in time, otherwise somebody will steal it. And then at noon they come around with these big steel pots full of lentils and beans. 80 guys locked up together in a cell, and every day they serve beans. And in the evening they come around with some other kind of crap. But then they sell stuff. Prison is this vast captive market. And again, you can take money out from the bank or you can smuggle money in. But carts, outside food vendors would come around to the prison, pushing these big steel carts, selling all kinds of stuff. Fruits and vegetables and yogurt and onions and olives and pistachios. And you can buy, if you got money, you can buy anything in jail. There's more drugs in jail than on the street. You can buy a gun in jail if you want. Anything you want, if you got money, you can buy in jail. It's a little microcosm of the outside.
So in your prison, there was a lot of guys using drugs?
Everybody's using drugs. Everybody smoked weed. hash. They didn't have, it's the same thing, but it was how you make it and how you press it, and it's hash over there. And virtually everybody smokes cigarettes, which I didn't smoke when I went into jail, but everybody smoked, and there's just so much smoke in the air. I started smoking cigarettes in jail just because everybody else was smoking. I didn't even like it, which is why it was easy for me to quit. But everybody smoked hash because it made it easier to be in jail. And at one point, after I got out, this whole epidemic of heroin hit the prison. And in fact, in Midnight Return, I've got letters from a friend of mine who was in jail. I sort of after I escaped, I follow his story, what it was like for him inside, and my letters back and forth. I've got, handwritten letters from him in Midnight Return talking about the heroin epidemic that hit the prison. But there's a lot of drugs around, of course. We actually, at one point, people were making homemade wine. You get grapes or you get pears, and then somebody from the kitchen would bring up some yeast, and they put it in a bag or in a can and have it somewhere, and you ferment wine just to escape. Everybody's trying to escape somehow.
Oh yeah, I was right. You stayed in touch with some of the guys that you were in there with prison with after you got out.
Not too much. What I discovered was that people you knew in jail, you really didn't want to have connection with when you're on the outside because they've sort of seen you at your worst and your lowest and stuff. Most people get out and they forget, or they try and forget. In my case, I didn't have that option. I got out. I got home on a Friday. By Monday, I was writing a book. I wanted to forget jail. I didn't want to write about it, but economics forced me to, and the situation forced me to. And the truth is, it was my therapy. It was so cathartic to get all this stuff out of me. It forced me to relive this stuff. I was having terrible nightmares at first when I got back. But as the words kind of stuck to the page, the nightmares sort of stopped. It sort of settled onto the page. And it became a very cathartic thing for me to be able to put this whole prison experience into a book. Then I discovered acting. And I met an acting teacher named Eric Morris in Los Angeles who saw right through me and knew all the stuff, how I covered up. He said, you realize every time I get you to talk about your prison experience, you make some glib little comment or a joke. I said, well, that's not true. He said, it is true. You're afraid to deal with it. You don't want to touch this stuff. And I didn't. There was just so much going on that in jail, if stuff happened and like emotional stuff happened and you just couldn't deal with it, my image was just put it in this metal box and close the lid, because what you have to deal with is right there in front of you, here and now in the prison. What's going on? All the emotional stuff. I just kept putting it into this closed metal box inside me. When Norman died, I had to put him deep in this box. I couldn't deal with it. And eventually I got out and this box was rumbling. And, when I first got home, people suggested very kindly, but they all suggested, you should think about therapy. I said, no, I don't need therapy. I'm fine. I desperately needed therapy. Writing the book was the first version of therapy. And then becoming an actor and talking with Eric, and he made me realize, he said, all that stuff, you're afraid to deal with it. And it was the truth. But he made me realize that all of that stuff is my gold. G-O-L-D, as an actor. As an actor, you need to be able to connect with your audience. You need to replicate what's going on with your character. And I had so much stuff to use, but I was afraid to use it because it was overwhelming to me. And working with him really became therapy for me and made me realize that I can put all this stuff into place. I take all my chances on stage now. I don't want to do anything out there in the world again and get busted and go to jail. I'll take all my chances on stage. And all that stuff is part of my repertoire as an actor that I can use. And that's become so good for me and so therapeutic. I still do it. I'm going to do it every night when I'm doing my show.
That's a good question, though. Now, after you got back, you never did any more crime in your whole life. You never did anything.
Well, I smoked pot illegally until it became legal in California. I don't think I committed any other crimes.
Okay.
Why would I? I don't need to.
I'm just, wondering.
No, I mean, other than that.
Because a lot of people do,
Yeah, but I'm trying to think what I might do. Not very much.
It's still time.
Speed limit. I don't speed much. I'm very quick, but I don't speed. And now I have a medical marijuana license in California, so, I could smoke there. I can probably smoke in Nevada in a couple of months because I think they're going to be legalizing here too.
Yeah, me too. It's all set up.
Yeah, well, it's about time, please.
Now, how'd you finally get out? Let's hear about the prison break and how you got back to the States. Because you had
I got myself transferred to Imrali Prison Island. It's an island 26 kilometers, or like 17 miles off the coast in the Sea of Marmara. And I'd heard, again, in jail, you're always listening, talking to people, trying to find information about stuff. I heard that this island was a really good place to go. They called it half open because they didn't have like a wall around the prison. The prison in Istanbul had this big wall with barbed wire and stuff. The island itself, they considered the sea to be the wall around the prison because prisoners work there. A lot of prisoners were there, people who had been in jail for years, and now their time is running down, and they're less likely to try and escape, or for various reasons. I got myself transferred to Imrali Island. The same doctor who I bribed that sent me to the madhouse, he got me transferred to Imrali Island. The American consul was talking to people about somehow trying to bring me back home. There's something called what's the real name of it? The Prisoner Transfer Treaty. It's now been in place for 40 years between the United States and a lot of other countries, where foreigners in the United States can get transferred back to their home countries, and American in foreign countries can be brought back here to serve the remainder of the prison sentence, supposedly. That whole process was happening while I got transferred to Imrali. So I was able to tell everybody there, and the prison doctor said, the American government is working to bring him back. And first off, nobody could believe I got 30 years for 2 kilos of hash. I was the first foreigner who received one of these draconian sentences. Unluckily, I wasn't the last one. But people would say, 2 years for pot? I mean, I saw guys who killed people who got 15 years. They got 15 years for murdering 2 guys. I got 30 years for 2 kilos of pot. So I was able to tell everybody on the island that I'm being transferred here because the American government is working to bring me home, which they all thought, well, of course they're going to bring you home. You're an American. But it just took the onus off the fact that I'm really there to escape. And this is an island, and I'm a lifeguard. I worked over at Gilgo Beach and Cedar Beach and Fire Island. I'm a really good ocean swimmer. I was a lifeguard for years, and I'm desperate. And desperate men do desperate things. I got myself transferred to this island. It was a work island where the fruit and vegetables would be brought over from the mainland every day. They had a canning factory there, cheap labor, prison labor. The boats that would come from the mainland weren't allowed to spend the night in our harbor because it was a prison island. But one day, a storm was coming up, and I saw that the boats were already anchoring for the night because the storm was getting so bad out that they weren't going to leave the sort of horseshoe-shaped harbor. And each boat had a little wooden dinghy tied behind it. And once I saw, at first I thought about swimming, but 26 kilometers is a really long ways, especially after 5 years in jail. But these little wooden dinghies, so I just knew the next time there was a storm, I arranged to get myself out past the night bed check, which was pretty easy. I became friends with one of the head gangster prisoner guys. In jail, it's really strange. The hierarchy in prison is sort of the reverse of what it is on the outside. The worst people who do the biggest, baddest crimes are at the top of the social structure in prison. The bottom of it is the hash smugglers like me. But I was the only foreigner on the island. All rest of them people were Turks. I spoke good Turkish at that point. I made myself friends with the number one prisoner gangster guy who, in jail, there's the guards and people, and then there's the people who really run the prison, which are the wealthy gangsters who get busted for one reason or another, and they know somebody bribed somebody else's rival and they got thrown in jail. They're only going to be there for a couple of months or 6 months. They know they'll be out eventually. Paperwork will change. Somebody will get bribed. But while they're in jail, they live like kings, and they're the guys who really control things. I arranged to become friends with the head gangster prisoner, and I could get out past the night bed check because of that. And I knew if I got one of these little rowboats, I'm going to row to the mainland and get myself, one way or the other, get myself back to Istanbul. I had a friend in Istanbul, a guy who'd been in jail with me for a bunch of years. He'd become a Muslim. He spoke good Turkish. He was working as an assistant manager in a hotel. And he owed me big time. I kind of saved him from a bad beating once in jail, and he really owed me. So I knew if I could get to Istanbul, he'd hide me out in the hotel for a week. I'd get some false papers, and I'd slip out of the country. So I got myself out of the jail into this little rowboat. I swam out, cut the rope on the rowboat, and rowed to the mainland. Spent all night rowing across the mainland in a storm. Hit the beach of Asia Minor as the sun was coming up, and then made my way back up across the coast of Turkey back to Istanbul, where my friend was, and I thought he was going to hide me out. But unfortunately, when I got there, the hotel manager said, "Oh, Wolfgang," which is his name. He said, "Wolfie, you just missed him. He left yesterday for Afghanistan." It's like, no, don't tell me that. That was the end of plan A. I was so freaked and exhausted, I wanted to just collapse on the ground and cry.
Wait a second. Let's back up a little bit here. So all that stuff in the movie about you pulling the gun and changing the clothes, none of that really happened?
None of that. They got me killing a guard,
right.
butting this guard who they got me trying to rape me, which didn't happen, and butting this guard, and he hits his head on a spike. And then there's that sound effect that I've watched that scene with and without the sound. It's all in the sound effect. It's like a couple of special effects guys spent hours with a big watermelon and a spike trying to find that right sound, and it's visceral, and it hits. They got me killing that guard and skipping out the door, which, I always say, if it was that easy, skip out the door, it wouldn't have taken me 5 years. I didn't kill that guard. I got transferred to the island and escaped off the island in the rowboat and then rode through Turkey and spent 3 days running through Istanbul. When I got to Istanbul, my friend wasn't there. That's the end of plan A. My next plan B was to get to the Greek border, and there's a river that separates Turkey from Greece. It flows down from Bulgaria, separates Turkey from Greece. And I knew if I got to Greece, they would never send me back to Turkey. They've been enemies for 1,000 years. And for my crime, it's pot. If I kill someone, that's a whole different story. Aside from the moral, karmic implications of killing another human being, legally, the Greeks wouldn't have let me go. They would have held me. The U.S. wouldn't have allowed me back in. I'd had to go to Uruguay or somewhere and live in the mountains, which is one reason I didn't buy a gun in jail when I was plotting all of this escape attempt. And I had money. My dad smuggled money into me in a photo album. And in jail, if you wanted a gun, you could buy a gun. But if I've got a gun and you've got a gun and we're pointing guns, somebody's going to be shot and dead. If I'm dead, I'm dead. Or if you're dead, then legally I'm not free. I can't go anywhere. So I didn't buy a gun because I didn't want to have that choice. But I was able to eventually make my way from Istanbul by bus to Edirne, which is an old border town on the river, the Maritsa River, that separates the two countries, and then swim across the river at night into Greece. I wasn't exactly sure. The river has changed over the years. The border's changed over the years. When I got to the other side, it was the middle of the night. I wasn't exactly sure that this was Greece. And I didn't want to run up to the first guy and have him be a Turkish soldier. So I kind of wandered through the woods all night. And just before dawn, I came out of the woods to a little dirt road, which I knew I shouldn't be on, but it felt so good on my feet because I'd taken off my shoes back on the Turkish side of the border. Now I'm walking barefoot. Here's how goofy I'm getting. But this Greek soldier, suddenly this bayonet slashed down in front of my face, and this guy yelled something, and I didn't understand him. And he yelled again, and I realized I don't understand him. And I speak good Turkish by now, which means he must be speaking Greek, which means I'm in Greece and I made it. And I kind of collapsed on the ground with this big grin on my dirty face, and the soldier started blowing his whistle, and more soldiers with flashlights circled around me, and this captain guy stuck his pistol in the light, and he said, "Who are you? Who are you?" I said, "I'm an American. I just escaped from Turkey." They kept me in a little room in the woods for 12 days while the Greek government figured out what to do with me. I know I could sit on my head for 12 days after 5 years in jail, and I know the Greeks are never going to send me back to Turkey. So eventually what they did was deported me as a bad influence upon the youth of Greece, which is literally the same charge against Socrates. They didn't ask me to drink any hemlock, which is nice, but they deported me, and I took a flight from Greece, and I was able to fly with a very strange stop at Frankfurt to Amsterdam. And I knew that if I'm going to be free anywhere in the world, it'll be Amsterdam. And it was. I mean, I got off the plane and took a bus into the city, and, they just stamped my passport like any other free man. And my first 4 days of freedom were in Amsterdam.
Wait, before we get to that, because you said you had no shoes. They gave you shoes?
Say again?
Because you said you came out of the woods, you had no shoes. They hold you for 12
right.
days. So they gave you shoes before they put you on a plane.
No, the American consul, Jim Murray, who met me, and after they caught me in the woods, they kept me there for 12 days, and they took me to Thessalonica, and Jim Murray, the American consul, was such a cool guy, came out and he brought me food and clothes and books and a pair of his own sneakers.
Okay.
And while I was in there for 12 days, I read Papillon, and I read Kazantzakis, and I read Catch-22. Again, I'm an English major. You know, you've always read Catch-22. Yeah. And then they deported me. So I had Jim Murray's shoes on when I landed in Amsterdam. And I knew once I got to Amsterdam, I'm free.
Okay, let's take a commercial break. I got a million questions, man.
All right.
This is crazy. My God, what a life, man.
Interesting.
Well, you made it, man. God bless you.
I did.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We got Billy Hayes here, the author of Midnight Express, one of the fastest talking guests we've ever had. The Midnight Express Letters from a Turkish Prison and Midnight Return, Escaping Midnight Express. Oh, my God. We'll be right back with more Billy Hayes right after this.
And now a word from our sponsors.
Have you ever thought about opening your own mobile cart or kiosk business? Maybe the facility you manage could establish new revenue by adding coffee, food, or retail services. Cart King International can be the answer to your needs. Cart King is a North American designer and manufacturer of the finest mobile coffee, food, and retail carts and kiosks. Cart King has been working with clients and corporations across North America for 20 years, providing innovative designs, custom manufacturing, and timely delivery. Carts and kiosks are fun, and so are the dozens of designs on our website. Please visit us today at www.cart-king.com or just call us at 1-877-986-7771 and get your sales rolling.
My sound man, Shane McKay, has his business called MacSoundServices.com. That's M-A-C-K soundservices.com. What he does for me is I send him my shows, and he does audio enhancements and stuff like that. He does miracles if you see some of the stuff I send him and how it comes back. So get a hold of Shane at MacSoundServices.com. M-A-C-K soundservices.com. PureSoapFlakes.com. 218-568-2525. Have you ever heard of Castile Soap? Pure Soap Flake Company handcrafts fine soap bars, laundry powder, and concentrated soap flakes using organic vegetable oils from their northern Minnesota facility. Bathe your body and wash your clothes with Pure Soap products that are free of fragrance, GMOs, palm oil, sodium lauryl sulfate, and synthetic additives. Keep it clean, folks. Pure Soap Flake Company products are kind to living creatures and sensitive skin, safe for drains and waterways, and work great in high-efficiency washers and top and front-loading machines. They have a little promotion going on. Contact them to order some soap. Mention the Opperman Report. You're going to get a free gift. They're going to send a little extra soap, travel size, soap bars and laundry soap, cleaning soap flakes. I've been using that stuff all day long today. Great stuff. Order today at puresoapflakes.com or give them a call, 218-568-2525, 218-568-2525. Pure Soap Flake Company is a proud member of the Handcrafted Soap and Cosmetic Guild.
Tina Helmuth is writing an ongoing series of fact-fiction books that boldly takes on today's most heinous crimes, the abduction, sexual trafficking, and cannibalization of our children. Suffer the Little Children, The Wrath of the Father, and Unbreakable. Deeply researched and mixed with the supernatural, good versus evil makes these thrillers hard to put down, shining a light on the root cause of these crimes and introducing a spiritual solution. Justice will be served. Available at lulu.com in paperback or ebook.
It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. We're here today with Billy Hayes. Now, he's the guy, the kid from Midnight Express, that movie. Okay, it came out in the 70s. An incredible movie. If you've never seen it, you got to look it up. You can find it for free on Putlocker. I got a link to all his books on the Opperman Report bookstore, oppermanreport.com, and also too on the blog. Okay, there's links to all the books that he's written. Also, too, he does a one-man show. Now, I can only imagine what that's like, man. I would love to be there for that. That is incredible. And he was telling me off the air he's going to be doing some in Ireland, New Zealand, all these different kind of places. So when he does, I promise you guys, all you guys over there in Ireland and stuff, as soon as I know the dates and times like that, even if it's a year from now, whenever it is, I'm going to make an announcement on the air. But before we get back to our guest, let me tell you about Michigan mushrooms. And that's what Michigan mushrooms, that's what the bottom line here is. Okay. Say, have you heard about chaga mushrooms? MichiganMushrooms.net thinks chaga mushrooms would make a great holiday gift. Now, you can use them to make a tea that the Russians have enjoyed for hundreds of years, and millions of Russian serfs can't be wrong. Check out MichiganMushrooms.net. They also have reishi mushrooms, known in China as the mushroom of immortality, and chaga mushrooms known as diamond of the forest. Now, they harvest them from pristine wildlands of northern Michigan and offer them for some of the best prices available online. You go to their website, MichiganMushrooms.net. Their Facebook page is Michigan Mushrooms LLC. Check out my buddy over there, Chris at Michigan Mushrooms. But tonight we have Billy Hayes. Okay, Billy. Now, you're making this plan, right? With the rowboat. Before you do that, though, are you doing like push-ups and chin-ups and stuff like that to get in really good shape? Because you haven't been.
I was an athlete in school. I was a wrestler and a surfer and runner and all that stuff. So I was always in shape. I used to do martial arts. And then, of course, in jail, I did yoga every day. When I got to the island, actually, my first job there was on a conveyor line, picking strawberries and they canned fruit and stuff because they had this cheap prison labor. But then I got myself transferred to a lifting and a toting job, carrying these 50-kilo sacks of beans and fruit up from the boats that would arrive every day and arrive at the dock, and then we carry them up the hill to the canning factory. And I wanted to do that job. I got myself assigned to that job because I wanted to get hard and healthy for my escape. I stopped smoking cigarettes in jail. I started in jail. I stopped. I was smoking hash in jail because it made it easier to be there. I didn't want it to be easier. My life was fading away. I stopped smoking cigarettes. I stopped smoking pot when my sentence got changed, and I just focused on getting out because I know, my life is passing. 5 teeth in 5 years have fallen out of my head. Friends have gotten married and divorced, and life is going on, and I'm still in jail. I got really, really strong and healthy to get out. Again, I was lucky I was young, 23 to 28 when I get out, kind of at the prime physically.
Yeah. I got you, man. But no, you weren't doing any swimming, though, right?
No swimming until I got to the island. Actually, the first day I arrived on the island was a free day. I got to swim in the sea. Okay. I've been bathing out of a sink with a plastic pitcher once a week with 10 other guys for 5 years. I get to swim in the sea. It was unbelievable feeling. I almost took off from there straight across 27 kilometers. But swimming, you could do it. About once a week, you get a free day. You could swim if you wanted to.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay. But even rowing that boat, that must have been pretty tough, right?
Well, yeah, but again, I was in prime condition and I was very motivated. I'd row 1,000 miles if it was going to get me free. I was really motivated. I was going to be free or dead. That was the bottom line. For one of the nice things about jail is your options are so limited. Yeah. You got to deal with what's in front of you. Where's your food? Is that a knife in somebody's hand? You got to deal with what's going on, but you don't have that many choices. Life gets really simple. It's one of the problems, and it's one of the hard things about it. You have to make your day interesting. What do they say? You have to use your time, or your time uses you.
Well, we're down to the last 20 minutes. Now, out of all your experience through all this time, what do you want to tell us, man? What's the moral of this story?
Well, again, for a moral, I think I mentioned in the beginning when I talk to high schools and college kids, because they all think they're invincible. They know that nothing will touch them. And the reality is my message is do what you like. Know what you're doing. Knowing what you're doing means you take responsibility for your actions because you have to live with the consequences. And I never thought about my consequences. Now, when I do things, I try and think about the consequences before I do them. I think that's one of the factors of getting older and hopefully a little bit wiser and having a little bit of impulse control, which we know when you're young you have pretty much zero is what I had. And again, for me, the lesson was that my reason for being is to love. That made me a very different person. It focused my life in a way that nothing else had, and it still does. Now,
so as soon as you got back to now you got back to the States, you got the new shoes. The guy gave you the shoes.
Right.
All this kind of stuff. Now, you went straight into acting? You didn't have to get a job or anything like that? Or you must have had...
No, actually, when I got home on Friday, by Monday, I went straight into writing the book. That's what I did instantly. And that took up 4, 5, 6 months. And then I was looking for, well, what am I going to do now? And my lawyer, Michael Griffith in New York, he got me out to Mineola High School to talk to the kids when I was just starting to write the book. And I thought, well, wait, you want me to come to the school and talk to your kids? But it was a good thing for me. I got a chance to talk to an audience, and I loved the energy back and forth with an audience. And I went to HB Academy in New York, HB Studios, and studied there for about 6 months, and then moved to California. And that's where I met Eric Morris, the acting teacher that so changed my life. And I've been acting for 40 years, doing a lot of theater. I direct a lot of theater. I've done all kinds of TV and on soap operas. I got shot to death by Charlie Bronson in the movie Assassination. That's kind of the high point of my my film career, at least, was getting shot to death by Charlie, which I just loved.
Yeah, what was it like working with him?
He was a joy. He was a treat to work with. Very quiet, doesn't really say much. We were shooting a scene, the film called Assassination. His wife, in real life, Jill Ireland, was playing the wife of the president. Charlie was the Secret Service guy assigned to protect her, and I was playing Wolfgang, one of the terrorists who was trying to kill her. We were shooting a scene out in California at Will Rogers Park. About 3:30 in the morning. It was cold. It was wintertime. It was sort of rainy. They were setting up lights up in the hills for her to run away and then supposedly kick down the door of this shack that they've got there in the park. And I see her up on the hill, and I point the gun and try and shoot. It was taking them forever to set the lights. And at one point, Charlie Bronson comes out of his trailer, comes up to me, and he says, this is a long time ago, he says, "Kid, can you take a fall?" It's like, sure, Charlie. Well, I don't know what he wants, but sure. Whatever Charlie wants, you say sure. And he tells him, all right, get the lights out of the trees. We're done with all of that stuff. Bring him down here. The kid he shoots the door. He kicks it in. He sticks his rifle out the window to shoot her up on the hill. I'm going to be down below the window. I'm going to grab the barrel of the rifle. The kid hangs on, and I'm going to throw him on the ground, shoot him, and we're all going home. It's like, okay, Charlie. And that's what he did. I ran up. I machine gunned the door, kicked the door, stuck the machine gun out the window. Charlie was down below. He grabbed the barrel of the gun and then threw me out the window 6 times. They shot that 6 times. And then they rigged me up with squibs, and Charlie grabbed the gun and he shot me, and they had all the squibs go off. People have said, wow, that scene in Assassination, the way you bounce around with all those, getting shot, it looked real. I had burn marks all over me from these squibs. They're not supposed to burn you. They're not supposed to do that. These 20 or 30 squibs were burning up my body. But it was a good scene. I got to be shot to death by Charlie Bronson, and it's my moment of film fame, I think.
I bet you wish
Theater-wise, I've done a lot of good work, but that's my favorite film part.
I bet you wish you had the hash tapes yourself.
Oh, yeah, it was really good hash.
No, I mean, it was taped and then they put the squids on top of that. But now,
that would have been good too.
Now, did Charlie know that you were the guy that you were in prison for 5 years in Turkey?
Yeah, pretty much the word gets around. I don't usually tell people that. Strangely enough, guys coming out of jail don't usually tell people they've just spent a whole bunch of time in jail. I never had that option. The whole world knew that I was in jail and why I was there. But I don't bring it up right away. Eventually, it goes out. What I found as an actor, it was a sort of a two-edged sword, because it would get me in the door of a lot of places for auditions. Everybody wanted to see, who's this weird guy who escaped from jail? It didn't always get me the roles. They weren't seeing me as the part they were casting. They just saw this escaped prisoner kind of guy, and they wanted to meet me. And sometimes it got me jobs. There were a few things where it worked out perfectly. I did a thing called Stingray, a TV show with Nick Mancuso, where the guy supposedly had been in a Russian jail for 5 years because of something that the lead character, Nick Mancuso, did. And now I'm out, and I'm stalking him. So I went into the audition. It's like, I don't have to do anything. I've already been in jail for 5 years. I can deal with that. So I got the part. So, sometimes it works for me.
I remember that series, too. Now what?
That was fun. That was a great show. We shot that up in Vancouver in about a week.
Okay.
Great to work with. I really like Nick Mancuso. Terrific actor.
Now, what about when you go to the bank and stuff like that? Because I know, I saw you on Facebook, and as soon as I saw the name, I recognized it right away. And I said, hey, is this the same guy? Now, do you get that?
Yes and no. Again, it's been a long time. It's 40 years ago. So depends upon who knows what. There's a whole younger generation that, of course, weren't even born when all this happened. But they've seen, the movie keeps playing. Again, there's my problem. I love the movie Midnight Express, but you don't see a single good Turk in it. It creates this overall impression that they're terrible people. This is a horrible country, none of which is true. You've heard my stories. But the movie is still out there. It keeps playing. Somewhere in the world, right now tonight, it's playing somewhere. They keep playing it. So if people don't know what I'm talking about, they think, well, that's what Turkey is. Well, I get a chance to talk about it in a lot of ways now. Sometimes people remember, they hear Billy Hayes. We know that name from somewhere. A lot of the younger kids have seen, there's a show called Locked Up Abroad. That was an English show that literally was 6 seasons of stories of people who have been locked up abroad. And they did their version of my show called The Real Midnight Express a few years back. And it was an incredibly successful show. They aired the show itself 35 times, and I stopped counting. I wish I'd gotten paid for each one of these, but I didn't. But the show itself, they air all over the world. They have an audience of 160 million people in 63 countries, and they kept airing that show. So there's a lot of younger kids who told me they've seen that show, so they know my story from that. Or they tell me their parents tell them about my story. I'm sort of, again, my life is at the very least a cautionary tale. When I was in Melbourne doing the show, a lot of kids, guys in their 30s and 40s now, told me when they were in school that it was mandatory reading to read the book Midnight Express. It's like, you guys need to learn what can happen to you in the big bad world if you're as stupid as this guy. So it was really bizarre for me to hear kids who had read my book 20 years ago when they were in school.
Yeah, I remember the first time I watched the movie. It was horrific, it was really startling. But when I rewatched it, and I've rewatched it, because it's a great movie. But when I rewatched it yesterday, it wasn't as shocking. Do you know what I'm talking about? Is that because now we have 24-hour news where people are getting shot up in Paris?
I think so. I think we're almost inured to this thing. I mean, it's a bad thing to say, but there's so much death going on every day. Everywhere you look and hear and turn on, it almost washes over you. It just almost goes by you until you realize each one of these is a human being who's been shot or killed or gassed or whatever is happening to them. So I think the shock factor is almost wearing off on us, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah, because this wasn't that long ago.
No.
And it was so dramatic. It was even the parts about the rats and stuff was so dramatic,
Well, again, I was very lucky. I have problems with the film, and Oliver Stone, wrote the courtroom speech that was not what I said, and Alan Parker's got me killing a guy, and I talked to Alan. They showed me the movie in a little screening room in Fifth Avenue in New York at Columbia. I was all by myself, a little tiny room, all by myself in the room. When I finished, I could barely breathe. I could barely speak. I was sweating. Alan Parker was out there. He said, well, Billy, what do you think? I said, I love the film. What happened to my rowboat? I missed. Prison takes away so much from you. Escaping and getting myself out gave me back that sense of self. The prison it breaks you down in a way that you never recover from. And escaping got me out. I wanted to see my damn rowboat in the movie. And he said, what 45 minutes of this film do you want to cut out to put in your real escape? The audience has had enough. Get them out of the bloody theater. As a filmmaker myself now, I understand maybe why he did it. I understand that, price-wise, it would have cost them a lot of money to shoot on the sea at night and then running through Turkey for 3 days. And Alan was maybe right. The audience has had enough. Get them out of the theater. But I missed it, and I certainly didn't like the ending with killing this guard. That guard was actually killed by a fellow prisoner who he'd beaten in jail. And while he was beating him, they found some hash somewhere, and they wanted to know where it was from, and the guy said it was from Allah, from God. And, of course, they beat him for days. And while they were beating him, the guard was cursing out his family, blah, I blank your sister, and I blank your mother, and I blank your grandmother. And this guy went free a year or two later, and most of the guards are just guys doing a job, a really nasty job. They're in the same danger we are. They make no money, which is why they were open to bribes. But the one guard in the movie, the bad guard, he was a sadist. He liked to hurt people. And if he would walk in the room, everybody would go into that POW stance and look down, and all you're thinking is, please don't stop in front of me, because you didn't want this guy in front of you. He could smell fear. You literally can smell fear. He would walk down the line and just kind of sniff people. And he knew who was the guilty guy. But he was killed by this prisoner. The prisoner came up to him. The guard used to drink tea at this little chai shop every day before going into jail. The prisoner came up to him and he said, Hamid, which is the guard's name. Hamid Bey, do you remember me? Bang, he shot him in the arm. He said, that's for my sister. Bang, he shot him in the arm. That's for my grandmother. He shot him 8 times. Last time shot him in the head, put the gun on the table, and sat down and waited for the police. And when it came, he said, he dishonored my family. He disgraced my family, in jail while he was beating me. It's legally, on Turkish law, there's a crime called a crime of honor. And this guy got 15 years under the crime of honor point for killing this guard. I got 30 years with 2 kilos of hash. He got 15 years for a death. It's like, I don't know what to make of it.
You could have had a hash of honor.
There you go.
Could have made Hey, by the way, real quick, I'll tell you a funny story. Is one of my producers, Keith Davis, his mother, and he tells the story all the time, his mother was smuggling hash out of Morocco. Right around the scene. Yeah.
I love his mom.
Well, she's actually she was called the marijuana mom. She was a famous activist from around that time, around the 70s and stuff like that. But what do you call it? She got caught in Morocco. She had a couple of pounds of hash in Morocco in her hotel room, and they came in, they busted in, and she had it all hidden, and she just took out a couple of ounces as though this is all we had. And she was pregnant at the time too with Keith. Mm. And they let her go, man. They felt so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. I hate to tell you.
Well, Keith is a lucky guy from back before he was even born. So good for him.
And he is. And he's an activist to this day. He's a really cool guy. And he's out there fighting in the streets for our rights and stuff like that. Great guy, Keith Davis. Oh, my God. So now, do you still talk at schools and stuff like that as well?
Actually, we have a bunch of college shows lining up here. 2016 is lining up to be a really good year. So we're going to be doing the show at colleges. And then, obviously, as I mentioned, in Australia, New Zealand, and Ireland. And I'm hoping here in Las Vegas, somewhere in the near future, you're going to be the first guy I contact, and I'm going to tell you when we're at, and I'll have 2 seats down in front for you for riding the Midnight Express somewhere in the coming year.
You know what, man? I would love that. Thank you so much. Right. And whenever you got a gig, man, let me know. I'll promote it for you. I'll mention it on the air.
Absolutely. I appreciate all you've done here tonight. And, getting my books out there is a good thing. Everybody's self-published these days. It was nice when a publisher did it, but they promoted it. They put me out there, but they took all the money. Now there's no publisher. You got to promote it yourself. So I do appreciate the chance for you allowing me to talk about my books. And this has been a real joy and a lot of fun, Ed. I would love to do it anytime.
Oh, no, everyone's real excited about this too. And another thing too you have to look forward to is all the other hosts listen to my show and they'll steal all my guests. So you're going to be getting a lot of invitations in the next week. And the show repeats every day this week too. So you'll be selling,
oh, great.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
You'll be selling books, man. You'll be selling books. And I tell you, you should be selling books, especially the one with the letters in it, man. That's and there's pictures in there and stuff.
That's my wife's favorite book too, because it wasn't meant to be a book, and this is what it really feels like, and it's got. Yeah, I've come to quite like it myself. The photos themselves kind of blow me away. I look at these pictures, I'm thinking, this is amazing to me.
Yeah, but like you said,
life is an amazing thing. What is it? My old grandmother used to say, it's a great life if you don't weaken. So you hold steady. I will be talking to you down the line, my friend.
Yeah, and I just want to say, too, that the picture that we used on the blog, you do look really healthy in that picture. Like you could swim the 17 miles.
Oh, I was healthy. I was really healthy. I mean...
Billy Hayes, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Ed. You take care, my friend.
You too.
Bye.
Okay, there we had, guys, it was shot out of a cannon, man, from beginning to end. This guy was on fire, man. You gotta love these old New York guys, man. There's just something about them. And you notice too, man, all the guys we have on this show from the Bronx, man, are the coolest guests out there. From Joe DeToma on to Jim Rothstein. All the Bronx guys, man, are the coolest ones that we've had on this show. Okay, that was Billy Hayes, author of Midnight Return, Escaping Midnight Express, Midnight Express Letters from a Turkish Prison, and, of course, the original one, Midnight Express. If you haven't seen the movie, you can get it. It's on Putlocker. You just Google, watch Midnight Express online for free. This week we had a couple of really big guests in the member section. We had Wonder Hussey, Sarah Jane Woodhull, and we had, because she went to Barker Ranch, the Manson family Barker Ranch, and we also had Dr. Elliot Shin for the member section. Guys, we need members, okay? The only way to keep this thing going and for me to be able to do the show for free on Friday nights is by people subscribing to the member section or making donations to the Opperman Report PayPal account, because we haven't had a lot of memberships signups in the past few weeks, so it's been kind of tough. Coming up in the after show, I have Mackenzie Scott, who's a young model from Tennessee. She travels between Tennessee and LA, and she's going to be this week's Bernie Girl. We had last week's, get this, I just found out, last week's Bernie Girl, Mariah Sandoval, is tonight auditioning with Playboy magazine or the Playboy company for some kind of job over at Playboy. So yeah, I tell you, man, the Opperman Report can take you to stardom if you want to be one of our Bernie girls. Our first Bernie girl, of course, was Brady. It was probably my favorite Bernie girl. She was the first one, and she was a doll. And we only showed pictures of Brady with her face, but if you see Brady in person, she looks like a little Barbie doll. She's a gorgeous girl. Then we had Mariah Sandoval, was on last week. She's a makeup artist and a hairdresser and a model here in Vegas. And tonight we have Mackenzie Scott. I'll be calling her up about 7:30. Our newest and latest Bernie girl to give us updates on the Bernie Sanders campaign. And the after show, I'm also going to be talking about the Walmart. Okay, we got Black Friday coming up. So we're going to be talking about Walmart, boycotting Walmart, and why it's so important to boycott Walmart. We do not want to support Walmart. Let me think real quick. It's kind of funny because we booked Billy Hayes for tonight. I was planning on doing a Thanksgiving show. And I looked up turkey. I had all my notes were for turkey and turkey recipes and stuff like that, but it turns out there was a prison in Turkey that our guest was in, so I got kind of confused here. And what a kerflunk. Anyway, I'm going to play a little commercial here. Then we're going to restart the Spreaker. We call all the girls the Bernie Girl. Every girl who comes on is called the Bernie Girl because they're Bernie Sanders supporters. Okay, I'm going to play a little commercial here. And then, guys, remember, we're going to restart Spreaker. And that's what I'm going to say goodnight to PSN over there. Angel, thank you so much for letting me use your station tonight. Good night. Go over here. Shut that off. Good night, Angel. Good night, Angel. But we are still on all of our other list stations. And by the way, too, this new station we're on, by the way, we're on Wicked Radio now. They just picked this up. Oh, really important, too. iTunes. Guys, there's a link on the Opera Report blog for the iTunes channel. Go there if you listen to it on iTunes. But you got to leave comments and reviews and stuff like that. That's how you get a lot of listeners over there. Okay, guys, I'm restarting Spreaker. Good night. OppermanReport.com. Hey, do you like what you're hearing? Do you like the work that you see us doing here at Opperman Report? You can support that work by becoming a member at OppermanReport.com. And as you have access to over 200 exclusive shows and interviews that you can't find on YouTube or Spreaker or iHeart or iTunes or KYAH. You can't find them anywhere else online, exclusive to our member sections, to our members. Also, too, there's images, videos, documents, court docs, a lot of content there at OppermanReport.com. And it's the memberships that support the Opperman Report and allow us to play these shows for free on Friday nights and Saturday nights on all the stations you hear us on. You can also make a donation at OppermanReport.com. If you want to support the show and become a member, I can give you a discount. I'll give you 13 months for $65 if you email me directly at OppermanReport@gmail.com. And don't forget, you can hear your ad played here on the Opperman Report, reach hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people on a daily basis because the show is repeated every day all over the world. Contact me at OppermanReport@gmail.com and I'll give you a good deal on advertising rates.